Budget, the most critical component of event planning, Part 2. This video module is a continuation of Budget, the most critical component of event planning, Part 1. Before you watch this module, please make sure to watch the first half of the program. You've now essentially mastered the first half of the budgeting process for a model event of 3-day convention of 200 international veterinarians presenting papers in a series of daily symposium-style presentations. Remember that these veterinarians need daily networking opportunities, and at the end of the event, a major veterinary industry association will be recognizing a number of the attendees at a special awards ceremony. Budget, Section 4, Marketing and Awareness. This portion of your budget coincides with your marketing plan. This is where you determine how much money it will take to get your attendees to come and what you need to do to obtain any press coverage your client, award program host, and the attendees require. Invitations. Your invitations are whatever method you use to invite the attendees to come to this event and present their papers at it. If the client has identified the 200 chosen participants, you may want to budget for a personal phone call to each, followed up with a detailed email about the event and presenting there. You may also want to budget invitation follow-up emails on a regular basis to keep the attendees informed about developments and remind them to register. Advertising. This event doesn't need any advertising budget per se because the attendee list is small, pre-selected, and represents people from all over the globe. In this case, you won't be buying print ads or radio, TV, or ambient media, but you may want to put email updates under this budget line. Communications. Your communications budget line item will primarily be your contact with the media before, during, and after the event. Inviting media attention for an event is an ongoing process, and the salary for whoever you dedicate to developing media interest and the tools they use, i.e. telephone, should be in this category. Marketing materials. If you're doing a welcome and information packet for your attendees, budget for it here. You may also want press kits. They fall under this category. Printing. In most cases, you can put the printing costs with whatever printed marketing materials you choose to use. It's good to keep a miscellaneous printing category, though, for printing changes to daily agendas at the event and other information items that don't fall easily under any other budget category. Public relations. Public relations and communications are often dumped together in a budget. You don't really need any public relations line item for this event, but it's good to have this category in budgets for those events where you do need to communicate with a broad base of people outside your attendee base. Registration and registration service. There are various companies that handle the registration process, entering registrant data, keeping it secure, and updating you, their client, regularly. A 200-person guest list probably doesn't warrant such a service, but you do need to budget for a paper or paperless system of registering your guests, as well as a way to keep their personal information secure. Tickets and ticket services. As you won't be selling tickets to this event or any portion of it, you don't need a ticket budget for this event. You may find that ticket services are indispensable for big events to which passes are sold, and always budget for accounting for and securing of any cash you might generate before or during a ticketed event. Website. The registration for many events is done online at your secure website. Again, this is a small event, so you may not need the expense of a secure site for personal information entry, but you may want an informational site for the attendees. They may also want to publish their papers at the site after the event. Make sure a site is in your budget. Signage. From signs that say registered here to a big banner to hang behind the symposium stage, think about your signage needs early and budget for them. Also remember to check with the venue before you produce any signs, as they may disallow certain types and you may have to increase your budget to accommodate their requirements. Budget Section 5, Paperwork and Administrative. In this section of your budget, you will record any expenses associated with the permits and insurance and administration of the event, from mailing costs to making copies and setting up the mobile office. In the beginning of the budgeting process, you logged costs for human resource portions of administration, but not the daily costs of doing business. Insurance. After you have determined what types of insurance you need for your event, from general liability to cancellation policies, make a line item for each in this section. It's a good idea to have your attorney check this section as well, just to make sure you have all the required insurance elements in one place. Permits. You probably won't need any permits for this event as it is held in one central location with the necessary licenses in place to host events. Nevertheless, always leave this line item in your budget so you'll remember to check on and budget any permitting requirements. Freight and shipping. Estimate this category high as shipping rates are steadily increasing. If you need to nail down actual costs, weigh the items you will be shipping to and from the event and compare rates on the UPS, USPS, and FedEx websites. Postage and mailing. Set aside enough money to cover mailing out press kits, invitations, and such if you plan to do so. You can really cut back on mailing and shipping costs by being as paperless as possible and circulating digitally produced information via your website and email. Taxes. If you plan to sell anything at an event, you may be subject to paying sales tax. Check with your venue point person about possible tax issues and estimate them here. Contract and agreement fees. When signing contracts and agreements with venues, suppliers, and entertainment, you may be asked to pay a contracting fee. These fees are administrative and should be in a separate line item. Union costs. If any of the employees work for your venue or suppliers are unionized, you may come up against occasional unscheduled expenses. These should be recorded as administrative expenses. Mobile office. You need to anticipate the costs associated with your mobile office as well as the office and registration area expenses. Keep these separate from the administrative overhead by giving each its own line item. Copying. Make sure copies of all the vital paperwork for the on-site office should be a separate line item. Also remember to anticipate and estimate the cost of copies that may be made on site, updates and changes to daily agendas, for example. Budget Section 6, Desired Event Elements. This is the final section of the budget because these are all the elements your client and you want as add-ons but didn't know if you could have them based on finances available. They are not essential to the event, but they are the details that make it special and help it stand out in the eyes of the attendees and the press. Activities. Because it is important for the attendees at this event to socialize and network, your client may have an icebreaker reception or other food and beverage get-togethers on the wish list. By the time you get to this section of the budget, you should have a very good handle on what more you can afford. As a rule of thumb, focus on those wish list budget items that will enrich the attendees' experience the most. Awards. In this case, the organization hosting the recognition event will supply these so they do not have to be in your budget. However, in many cases you may need this line item in your budget. Tip. Leave it in all budgets to remind you that you may want to give some folks extra recognition and appreciation, and budget for it. Entertainment. Entertainment is seldom a must-have, and in the case of this event, which is very scholarly in nature, you probably don't need any. Your guests probably want the leisure activities geared towards socializing. After all, they've traveled from all over the world to share information, and they've been in the audience all day, every day already. Entertainment is appropriate for many events, however, so always have it listed in the wish list segment of your budget. Gifts. You should always set aside some resources for gifts. Your venue and service point people, staff, volunteers, and even some standout guests may warrant a parting or thank you gift. As a rule, these gifts should be more heartfelt than elaborate, so be creative and keep the meaning high and the costs low. Photography and videography. If you're in your AV portion of the budget, you will have set up audio recording of all the presentations, but perhaps not video in order to keep costs down. Ask your presenters and clients if they want any or all of the event photographed or on video for webcasts or other purposes. If so, budget for those expenses now. Special technologies. These can be anything from lighting to video walls and beyond. For some events, like high-tech industry trade shows, these technologies are a must-have. Not so much for this particular event. However, if there are special technologies that will significantly enhance the guest experience or bring in more press coverage, budget for them here. Lighting and special effects. These wish list items include additions to the event that are strictly for show or fanfare. They are nice added touches that make the event more memorable. The sky is the limit here, so if you have budget surplus and want to really wow your crowd, this is the place in the budget to spend that money. Having watched both parts of the video module on budgeting for an event, you are now well armed with the tools you need to match your budget detailing to your plan. Remember, never underestimate the power of your budget. Your events will succeed if you have a good plan and you have an even better budget.